So we all have this notion, don't we, of lateral forces as being moving into the backswing and then pushing through to face the target. And yeah, that wouldn't be wrong, but that's not how it's done at a high skill level. So what we're going to do in this video is understand how to switch our lateral forces on early and keep them there. And it's one of those aspects where if we get this right, it has multiple benefits, almost kind of seemingly unconnected benefits. There'll be less sway, there'll be better rotation, the knees will work differently, the club path will work differently. This is a challenge well worth taking on. Let's understand how this works. Okay, let's cut straight to it then. So, there are different forces in the swing. There's obviously the pulling on the handle, but in terms of the ground, there are vertical forces, there are front to back forces, there's rotational on this plane. But I think probably the one that we could all be better at and do more of is this lateral force. So lateral force is very simply me kind of gliding from side to side. So if I was going to jump sideways that way, I'd need to push my foot or push the force away from me in that direction. And that would look like this. So if I was going to just sort of jump from side to side, so if you want to practice lateral force, you just jump from side to side. And it starts to look like this kind of speed skater move. And that is lateral force. And lateral force has the benefit of obviously sending the energy in that direction, really helps with compression. And it also helps us get the arms to drop and shallow and get the body to kind of tilt this way a little bit. All really useful things. Now, often we use things like this kind of foot pedal and this, the force pedal and this foot wedge to feel the push off that trail knee and hip. And that's great, but that is not the full story. We've got to talk about the shape of the curve. So basically meaning at which point do we switch on that lateral force and for how long do we keep it there? So in this video, we're going to have a look at a session I did with two of my favourite students, Talanya and her brother Tanuka. Talanya is an England regional squad member, and Tanuka is an awesome single figure player as well. And both of them, when we looked at their force plate data, had a huge amount of vertical force, which is amazing, but very little lateral force, and it definitely was affecting their strike and their direction. So these are the patterns we went through. So this was Talanya's force plate data initially, and just very quickly, if I showed you her swing, you will agree it looks pretty awesome. Beautiful ball striker, not one of the longest players, in her kind of cohort. And if we look at the force plate data, just a quick view on this. So the arrows, that's her address. That's the front foot, back foot. The height of the arrow is the vertical force. So when she's standing still, that's just her weight. If she were to jump, the arrows would get high. The tilt of the arrows is the lateral force. So if she were to push off that right foot, sending her towards the target, the arrow would be tilting inwards. And what we see here with Talanya is she makes her awesome backswing, is she clearly shifts her weight to the back foot. But the arrow's looking vertical, and then as she moves across, she shifts over well. She has the tall arrow here, so she's pushing hard. She's creating huge vertical force. That's about 160% of body weight pushing upwards, and pushing early. So she's doing a great job in that regard, but very low lateral force. You'll see both arrows stay looking like that. And we have a similar situation with Tanuka. Awesome backswing. He's got a lot more kind of shift to the right there. He kind of moves over to the right and stays there. So, it's a little bit of a sway, and it takes a long time for him to get back the other side. And again, impact, he's actually still got weight on his trail foot, and both arrows are pointing upwards. So there's a weight shift, there's a lot of vertical force, 200% of his weight, twice his body weight, he's pushing up, but he's not pushing towards the target. So then I showed them this model, and I think it quietly blew their mind. So if we look at this player on the screen, I don't know how much you can see of the player himself, but he's not moving yet. He's just looking at the target. But what you'll notice is the arrows are tilted in. So he's already switched on lateral force. He is pushing to the sides, both sides, already before he even moves. And then as we take him back through the swing, you'll see the arrows stay tilted inwards. So that trail foot, the right foot, is still tilted inwards. He'll drop down, hence the arrows drop, but the arrow stays tilted inwards, still tilted inwards, while the opposite arrow goes the other way. So as much as, in his swing, he's got this amazing kind of vertical force while he's pulling the club, he's also staying connected to the floor and pushing sideways, pushing to the right with his right foot and pushing to the left, braking with the left foot. So applying lateral forces before you even move, I mean, that's quite an odd idea, isn't it? But that is akin to, and the metaphor that's often used is like a basketball player staying in a state of readiness would be pushing with both feet, so that when it came to kind of react, rather than having to apply the force and move, they just need to lift one foot and then they're very quickly moving in either direction. That is what that guy's doing on the video. He has both feet pushing away from him. Now the interesting thing when you do this, I'll do this on the force plates myself, and you'll see me kind of go through it with the youngsters, is first of all, it's an odd thing to do initially, and it feels a bit strange, but it's essentially me trying to push the felt of the force plates away from me, and that is what is getting the arrows tilting inwards. So I'm pushing in that direction with the right leg, and that direction, well, interestingly, as I push that way to stop me falling over, or to stop me going in that direction, the left one switches on automatically. So I'd call this just switching on your legs to start with. So I've got them tilted in backswing. And then as we make our backswing then, it is a case of swinging the momentum of the arms in that direction while my trail foot is kind of bracing against that and pushing me that way. And then we get this lovely interplay where we swing the momentum and the weight of the arms that way. I'm already pushing, so I've only got to slow my arms down and release a little bit of pressure here, and I'm starting to move in this direction. And that gives us this wonderful kind of rhythmical motion as well, where the forces build and the momentum builds, and then we see the lateral force in the trail foot really start to push us in that direction. And that's a very different look of the swing to someone who moves to the right, applies a force, and then moves to the left. It has more of this kind of momentum, swing and shift. And that is how we get the lateral force peaking before we even get to the top of the swing. It is not move and push before we get there, it's push right from the very beginning. And as the arms slow down, this is peaking to send me in that direction. So you'll see what we did then was we just had a bit of a practice, and having sort of learned to switch on the legs, which by the way, initially feels like a huge amount of force. But you know, once you've done it for a little while, I had a rest, came back to it. But the fifth time you come back to it, that doesn't seem quite so strange and quite so cramping either. Initially, it's really bracing, but you soon learn to kind of go with it, and then, you know, with a little bit of training, you'll be able to switch those forces on almost habitually. Anyway, so we did that. We learned how to switch the legs on, and then we just kind of hit a few half wedges, just trying to feel what is it like to switch on those lateral forces and keep them there throughout the whole swing. So we had some wedges that looked like this. Good grip. All right, switch on the legs. So just hitting half, maybe 3/4 shots, feeling what it is to continually create that lateral force. And I can feel that big push through the trail side, but it isn't that kind of sudden push off and move. And then I wanted the youngsters to feel what it is to have that kind of countering force, so swinging the momentum of the arms and the club in one direction while continually pushing against that with the trail foot. So that is me switching on those lateral forces, swinging the weight of this Indian club, water bottle, to the right, and then just catching that moment where the arms slow down and then I start to move myself in that direction. 3. Well done. And you'll notice as I do that, we start to create some of this frontal plane torque that is, you know, such a key part of really good swings. i.e., I'm not sort of turning and moving and trying to push back that way. So this is what Talanya and Tanuka's swing look like at the end. I mean, Talanya has less of that kind of move back, stop, pull down and jump. She has more of this kind of gradual, smoother look in transition. And when we look at her force plate data, my initial concern was we'd be losing some of the vertical force by doing this. In actual fact, without any kind of conscious effort at all, she gets her vertical force all the way up to over 170% of her body weight, and really early. So she's still doing a lot of vertical, coming mainly from pulling the arms, I would suggest, but while she's adding that constant lateral as well. The compression of the ball was better, and she was hitting it further and straighter consequently. And as I said to both the youngsters, I'm really excited to see where they would be in a couple of months with this, if they really start to build this in as part of their practice. Now Tanuka has lost the sway, so his motion had this kind of head and chest sway to the right, and you remember he stayed on his right foot in downswing, but that right foot is now creating that lateral force even before he started the club moving. So of course he's far less likely to sway in the backswing. He gets that frontal plane tilt and he gets driving to the left far quicker. So he's going to be in a much happier place as well. Now you might be watching this video and thinking, yeah, this is really interesting, it's new stuff, or I've seen that somewhere before. And it isn't new stuff. I mean, even when I was learning in the early 90s, we were taught to brace with the right leg, swing into the trail leg, swing into the inside of that trail leg. And it's that same concept. We're just now better able to understand it and better able to kind of coach it with force plates, etc. But ultimately, this is an age-old concept of swinging against the force in one direction to propel you in that direction. But ultimately, it's the same as a sprinter. It's the same as the basketball player moving sideways or the sprinter in the box who's pushing already in that foot but braking with that one. You've only got to lift off the brake and you're off and running, as opposed to having to apply that force and get going. So for me, this has been a fascinating journey so far by coaching with force plates, and there is so much more to learn. And if you want to join me on that journey, then please click subscribe. I'll be sharing everything I find out, because it's clearly not as simple as moving to the right and to the left or just kind of jumping. We've got to connect it all to the motion of the swing and the force and the handle. If you're interested in how we create the rotation as well through that lateral force, then I'll link a video down below, which was my visit to go and see Dr. Mark Bull and his views on how rotation is created, again, through that strong lateral force. But before I see you next time, keep practicing and good luck, play well.